Aloha, beautiful souls, and welcome to another episode of A Better World with Adrienne. I'm so grateful and excited to be co-creating another powerful transmission with my blood, my Lumerian sister I didn't know I needed. uh Partner in soul biz and just fellow new earth leader, Julia Phoenix.
Hmm. Hi, Adrienne. I'm so happy to be back here with you.
Yeah, it just feels like home. And actually, our podcast that we did about the Lumerian return was one of the most downloaded and, had the widest, deepest impact of all my podcasts so far. And so it just feels so good that it resonates here so deeply. It resonates with the frequencies of the feminine, the divine mother, and we're resonating with that part of every soul that experiences this container. So I'm just, thank you, Spirit. Thank you to all of it.
Yeah, love that.
So today we feel really called to open up a conversation, a portal called, and this isn't my words. This came through my crown. This dropped into my crown when I was voxering Julia walking at the beach, and we're just sharing our lived experiences as we're in this current moment unlocking a new earth, which at the time of this recording, it's October 2023. And it came in so loud as the war on the goddess. And we're each experiencing it in our own way. We're witnessing teachers and leaders experience it. We're witnessing this energy in the collective, and we feel called to steward a conversation about it. And so before we begin, let's call upon the altar. And the altar exists as thank you in advance to Spirit. Thank you in advance to the Mother. This is our offering. This is setting the stage for us to be instruments of your message and the web that is designed to support and hold us all. So on the altar, I have a white unscented candle, cleansing and protecting the space with Archangel Michael, our healed ancestors, true Christ consciousness, and spirit. I have white, pink, red, and orange roses.
Perfect.
We got to have all the roses in the house
All the roses.
for anything femme, anything Lumeria. And then I specifically have a Lumerian citrine quartz crystal and a rose quartz crystal in my hands, just grounding us in abundance and unconditional love. And so now let us all take our 3 deep breaths together and know that this is a portal to another timeline, a portal to the truth. So these breaths connect all of us us sharing and stewarding the podcast, you listening to the podcast, you listening, connecting to your highest self, all of it. Inhale through the nose. Feel the divine white light around you, blessing this transmission. Exhale out the mouth. Inhale through the nose. This time, feel your umbilical cord go down into the core of Gaia in deep, dark red. Keep holding your breath and feel the safety of clay hold you. Exhale out the mouth. Last inhale through the nose. This time, really focusing on your ears and your throat. Willing to hear truth, to know truth, to see truth. And then the courage to speak it when it's correct. Keep holding because you're strong and you can. Exhale out the mouth. Gently blink open your eyes. Come back to this transmission. And let's roll. Let's roll and talk about this. The war on the goddess. I feel responsibility in the room.
Uh-huh.
This is an important conversation, and I don't see a lot of people having it, and there's a reason.
Well, Adrian, what I would love is I know, you mentioned our awesome Voxer conversations, which we are normally doing with each of us in our respective beaches.
Yes.
But you had mentioned something to me about the astrology aligning with something that I was sharing, which sort of facilitated
Mhm.
the birth of this particular podcast. And I'm wondering if you'd mind like mentioning that to kind of kick us off.
Yeah. So this is all written in the stars. And so I just want to frame it with when things happen in our lived experience, especially things that are disturbing, uncomfortable, like horrendous, I always go back to my studies and I go back to the stars because no matter what package it shows up in, it's a gift from spirit. And like it or not, we are connected to the stars. It's undeniable. And so when we were having this Voxer conversation, I believe it was before it. Was it before eclipse season?
You froze for just a second. Um, yes, it was just before eclipse season.
Yeah. So there was a full moon before eclipse season that was very related to the dark feminine asteroid, like asteroid planets, like dark moon Lilith.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the dark feminine, and it was Mars was involved as well. And so Mars is the planet of war, aggression, passion, action. Unhealed, it's war, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a tense aspect between the planet of war and the dark femme power.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the power that is unapologetic. This is the power that's rooted in blood clot red. This is the feminine that's not scared to be strategic. And so it was written in the stars at this moon, like, and this is all building on the Lemurian return, which happened, the Venus return, right?
Mm-hmm.
Venus retrograde in Leo. Okay. Feminine leaders shining their light, coming back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then, the matrix grips. And so it's all divinely orchestrated. We could never plan this. Spirit had this plan a long, long time ago. And astrologers have been saying 2020, yeah, that happened. Also, what about 2023? What about 2025? What about the 20-year cycle we're about to start with Pluto in Aquarius? Pluto rules power. Okay. And so this is all unfolding to expose a long-standing war, unsaid war. It's not explicit, like, I mean, sometimes it is explicit, but it's been lurking. It's been lurking underneath this war on the goddess. And now it's coming up.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there have been times throughout the last couple of thousand years where perhaps it's been more overt, and there are places on the planet as well where this kind of attack on the feminine has been more overt. But I think that, what I've been noticing is that here in the modern Western world, most people are sort of asleep to it. And once you are attuned to the frequency of feminine power and you start looking around and seeing some of these things, it's undeniable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of people don't really recognize what's happening or what this is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't recognize it historically either, save for maybe a nod every once in a while to things like the witch trials, which people typically, in the West will relegate to like a specific place in time, or particularly in the US, it's like, oh, the Salem witch trials. And it's like, yeah, no. I mean, that was horrible, but that's a tiny, tiny sliver of what's happened again and again and again historically around the world for the last several thousand years.
Mm-hmm. And I was just like, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. Once you know it, you can't unknow it. And there's a reason why the wounded feminine is so pervasive,
Mm-hmm.
because there's been a war on the powerful goddess. Like all the goddess statues have been taken down. Like scriptures and spiritual texts have been rewritten. Like things have been erased. Even Julia has been speaking into this in our container homecoming of like, you're not going to find shit about Lumeria because they want us to not know, and it's so the deep intention in this podcast I'm really feeling is like to just speak openly that like there's a reason why if you're resonating with this, if you feel this in your soul, there's a reason why you reject or disown or hide or are scared, and expressing your true potent power and wielding it because it's literally been unsafe to do so
Mhm.
for. And we're seeing it, I'm seeing it left, right, and center with leaders, women leaders who are in their power and speaking truth, being eviscerated in the online space. And I'm going to give it to you straight, not by men.
Mhm. Yeah, I was just going to say, actually, this is not about, neither Adrian nor myself are going to feed you the narrative of like it's all the patriarchy and it's all men. And no, women are just as responsible.
Mhm. I would say
We
they
are
make
responsible.
more of a piece of the pie of like.
Well, yeah, for sure. Uh, and women are responsible for bringing their power forward as well, you
Mhm.
know, which when we are in fear, it's a bit harder to do that. But I think like I wanted to just really delineate here because there's sometimes like a narrative that when you hear people talking about feminine power and the goddess and the suppression of that or the desecration of that, there's kind of this narrative of like, and it's all men's fault.
And then guess who's oh my god. Oh my god. I literally just drafted a post this morning and it said the wounded feminine is the victim in a fancy dress. Zero
That's it.
responsibility
That's
and
it.
zero sovereignty.
That's 100% it. And that's what a lot of women sometimes don't want to hear, and I get it because I personally have been deeply, deeply wounded by what you could call the wounded masculine in my life, and just
Mhm.
very deeply wounded on a personal level. I see the distortions in the masculine collective, but I also see the distortions in the feminine collective. And for me to be looking outwards in the position that I'm in as a woman in the Western world,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
For me to be looking outward and saying it's your fault that I can't be in my power is deeply disempowering to me. And
And
it
women
is a
everywhere.
massive disservice. Yeah, and women everywhere. And it's a massive disservice to the goddess and to her power. So it's like
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to do that, you know.
Right. Right. And what's coming through really strong for me is, first of all, just acknowledging the privilege in this room. Like
Yes.
there are there are women around the world who are in real peril, which
Yeah.
is different than me feeling activated in my safe home with a full fridge.
Correct.
You
Very different.
know?
Very, very different indeed. Yeah.
And so I honestly like, because it's easy to slip into that slope of like, especially when it's scary, especially when you see cancel culture and you see it very connected to cash flow many times, because a lot of us are women business owners,
Yeah.
and we're like, fuck, if I say this, am I gonna like lose my audience? Am I gonna lose my, ability to provide for myself and my family? And all of that's very real. And at the same time, I do come back to, I'm like, when I speak for them. I speak for women everywhere. I own my power because it's not about me. It's about what I've been called to channel and steward. And something that's been occurring in my lived experience has been like just by me being myself and being in my power, like it's very activating or triggering for a lot of women around me,
Mm-hmm.
and especially in person on Maui, which I did not expect.
Mm.
So as a projector, I went when I arrived, it was like I was getting all these invitations, like left, right, and center. I felt so seen, and there were all these all like spiritual, like feminine gatherings. And I was like, oh my God, like it's happening. Like feminine, like the true, like goddess power. And then I start opening my mouth and sharing what I believe when people ask, and the invitations stop.
Mm.
And I'm psychic as fuck. And I have my Chiron in Leo and being seen in the third house of community and gossip. Gossip has been a big thing.
Mm.
And it's just part of what I'm meant to alchemize, and I'm meant to share that, like, we're still burning the witches collectively because you know it's other women that are afraid of their own power that are carrying out this war on the goddess much of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and there are these reasons why we're afraid of our own power, and this is
Mhm.
like collective and generational stuff that is very much in our cells. It's very much woven into the fabric of society. And listen, I didn't mean to say that like there's no inequities between men and women,
Oh,
or
yeah.
that doesn't exist, or that sexism isn't a thing or anything like that.
Yeah.
That I want to be clear about that, because that's very real, and that's a piece of things. But
Mhm.
I think it's really, really important that we as women look at how we are participating in disowning our power, and how we are participating in persecuting other women because we are afraid of feminine power ourselves,
Yes.
and where we've put down like the responsibility for our own power, where we've given that away. And once again, this is like we're speaking primarily to women in the West
Mhm.
who, have a degree of privilege here, right?
Mhm.
But you're absolutely right. And even in the witch trials, it wasn't just the men burning witches, and all the women were banding together and trying to hide, the women they were looking for. No, women were giving the other women up.
Mhm.
They were accusing the other women. They were participating,
Mhm.
you know because who knows, I might be next, first of all,
Mhm.
you know and then because that terror of the feminine runs so deep, that women have been, and many women still are, so afraid to touch that power within themselves that they have to execute it external to them. They
Mhm.
have to annihilate it external to them, because that's what they're doing inside. Feminine power is the power of creation. It is literally the power of life itself. It is the, like, raw feminine power is the greatest power that's available to us on planet Earth as human
Mhm.
beings. I firmly believe that. I will die on that hill. Nobody's going to tell me otherwise.
I'll die next to you.
Yeah, for sure. There's nothing more powerful than that.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is
and think
literally
about
the thing that brings forth worlds.
if we think about it, just because something that I love is like bringing logic to spirituality, is because I'm like calling all skeptics. Like
Mhm.
um if you think about the matrix and how intricate it is and how multifaceted it is, it's like they had to go through so many different layers and lengths to suppress this. That's how fucking powerful it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it wasn't so powerful, they wouldn't have. And when I say they, I say, the shadows of humanity. They wouldn't have needed so much to suppress it, and they wouldn't have enrolled the very people that hold the power in carrying out the mission. Because what I see now is like, I see humans in female bodies while the matrix sits there and watches them carry out the work.
Yeah. Yeah. And, oh gosh, there's so many different pieces to this. I feel like I'm like wanting to go on all these different tracks. But I just wanted something that came up when you were talking is like, carrying out the work and how, and the layers of how embedded it is that we fear our own power. I remember actually sharing something similar to with a woman in our container homecoming about some of the qualities that she personally had been most kind of had received the most negative mirroring around, most negative feedback around these specific qualities. And I was like, these are all feminine qualities, and same for myself. I'm not going to use her as an example. I'll use me, but um things like being too emotional,
Oh, yeah.
you know being too emotional, too expressive, not being able to suppress what was happening for me internally. So moving these big waves of emotion through my body. I've always been that way,
Me
and it made
too.
everybody around me really fucking uncomfortable because that is one of the ways that we have been conditioned to fear the feminine. And so this war on the feminine can show up, and this is just one way, but it can show up in emotional suppression, in this kind of rigidity and sterility, right? Or if you look at my past with eating disorders, right? The curves of the feminine body,
Oh,
hating that, like hating that.
and if you're listening to this and you felt that in your body, me too. I literally wrote in my journal this morning, my thighs touch again and I rejoice.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I've I've had my first two menstrual cycles in years. And it was a combination of fasting like a man, because I'm a biohacker, but I fasted like a man
Mm-hmm.
for years. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt really good until I didn't.
Mm.
Um, and it was very aligned with my projector journey as well. Um, but also, you know, trauma on my woman body, and just like rejecting the form.
Yeah.
And I feel more beautiful than ever. And I weigh, it's like I'm not a big person. I think I weigh probably 5 to 10 pounds more than I did 6 months ago.
Mm.
I'm so much more vital. People keep telling me how good I look and how happy I look, and like a glow. And it's a glow of coming home to the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
It is. And when you say that curve, it's like we're meant to be curvy, and we're, and not, held back and restricted.
Yeah.
with sex too, it's like that's the raw power.
Well, that's the other fucking thing, right? I mean, literally every single channel of our power as women, the things that make us the most powerful, have been like systematically, in my opinion, uh, like completely demolished, and we've turned against ourselves around them. So, your sexuality is bad, and you can't, or it's something that you sell and that you don't have any regard for. It's like either one or the other. There's no reverence for sexual energy. Uh there's no training that we receive on how to utilize that appropriately. Like it's one of those things. Um Also, like the body in general, the body is feminine, you
Mhm.
know? The body is feminine, the mind is masculine. So the human body and all the functions of the human body that most people think are gross, and periods, like bleeding, like all these things. I came from a line of women who and I'll just, say like my mother, she was so obsessed with like her outward appearance, right? And you could look at a woman like her and say, well, she's very feminine because it was always like, makeup matched the eyeshadow matched the top, matched the shoes, and everything was whatever, perfect, right?
Mhm.
Um, but it was very rigid, and the kind of just like organic, raw nature of the body
Mhm.
is not able to express that way, and the aging body of women
Mhm.
is demonized so fucking immensely, so immensely. And that is one that I am still working out, because
Uh-huh.
I'm about to be 38, right? I feel that conditioning every year on my birthday. I go through a new cycle of shedding a layer around this like deeply entrenched fear of aging, because we have no regard for the mature feminine, which is the
Yeah.
wisdom of the feminine. We have no regard for that. There's no place in society really for that. Uh, and so, basically, like these expressions that are supposed to be feminine, right? These kind of like maiden, like archetypes, and like this like very soft, kind of fluffy, like flowery, submissive, like this is what we're told feminine is. They
Mhm.
took out all of the parts that, in my opinion, are kind of the most powerful, and they made us hate them within ourselves and within others.
Yeah, and it's because it's a threat. It's
True.
because it's a threat, and you know, I can be light and frou-frou and all of that and dance on the beach, but when it comes down to it, I I have shit to say. I'm
Hmm.
powerful, and it comes from the womb, and this really comes back to surface spirituality, love and light. It's like,
Hmm.
nah, we're not making a world we're proud of with love and light. Love and light fucking banishes the moment any type of adversity enters the room. That's
Hmm.
not the feminine. That's the princess archetype that plays the victim, that
Hmm.
that ghosts the vision.
Hmm.
And this aging, you know, I've had it's so embedded, just like the
Yeah.
plastic surgery and like even in the spiritual space. Like I had somebody
Yeah.
say to me like, "Oh, well, once you get past 35, you'll do Botox." I used to think I wouldn't too. And I'm like, I don't think I will. Like, and I mean, it's not, I'm not hating on that if that's someone's truth, but it's also, it's just it's a sterilization of the body. And, both of us work with the body and work with the cells. And this is all so entrenched in our cells
Mhm.
through our bloodline, through our past lives. Like, that's why it's so activating. That's why people don't want to go there, because the body is what keeps you safe. The nervous system is what keeps you safe. And when you know, the Matrix has done an intricate, complete, thorough job of leveraging our own nervous system against us. And so like, one of the most important ways we can step into our deep feminine power is to reclaim our nervous system, is to reclaim ourselves, and reset them. And because that controls 95%. That's the feminine.
Mhm. Yeah, well, there's no accessing the true feminine without like pretty deep embodiment.
Mhm.
There's no real way to do it. Because again, the feminine is the body and it's about energy in the body. So, if you're disembodied, which pretty much, in my opinion, our whole society is designed for us to be that way, then we're cut off from our raw feminine power. And that
Mhm.
goes for men and women, because men do have access to
Mhm.
this energy in a different way, I would say, than people who are born with a female anatomy. But we all have access to this energy, and this energy is, I believe, like the medicine that the world really deeply needs now.
Mhm.
Men, women, and everyone in between. We all need the true feminine. And we are all actually on some level hungry for that power, even those of us who fear that power immensely, you know. And if you think you don't, you might just want to look at that, because I still am uncovering places where I do.
Oh, me too.
It's very deeply ingrained in, I would say, pretty much everyone to have this type of terror, because as you were saying, like a lot of it is cellular and it's collective, and it was programmed since birth for us to be afraid of these elements. For example, the feminine is also like the mystery. It's like the shadow. It's the things that are hidden. And so, we exist in a culture, in a society where we want to see everything, we want to know everything, we want to understand everything with the mind, otherwise we don't feel safe, right? That's also a representation of this fear of like of the feminine. Um, and it's just, there are all of these different ways where I feel it's really easy to fall in to this fear and to this sort of like suppression in different directions. And so another thing that I want to say to the listeners is that if you are listening to this and you're like, wow, well, I feel that way about my body, or like I don't feel comfortable with this, or like I'm struggling with my sexuality or whatever. I'm like, of course. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
okay, you know?
Well, and the whole reason like we're having this conversation is because we're in the fucking trenches too, in our own way.
Yeah, every day.
And
Every
we just,
day.
like, you know, there's a reason why we both care about liberating women, because we've been liberating ourselves
Yeah.
for decades now.
Yeah, and it's a whole process. I think it's just really important to be aware of this, like, because as you said, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you'll begin seeing it everywhere. This immense demonization of the true feminine, of feminine power, and I think just opening your eyes to that, and being willing to really contend with that and meet that is the biggest thing. I think that's the greatest thing here. But being gentle with yourself through the process, like please do
Yes.
that. You know, we don't need to hate ourselves even more, you
Right.
know. We don't need that.
Yeah, so, like, coming back to I did a podcast called How to Interrupt Your Own Pattern, and
Mm,
it was this framework that actually came to me literally in the middle of one of our homecoming transmissions. Notice, nurture, nudge.
mhm. Yeah,
Notice.
I love that.
Like, this whole podcast is for you to notice and
Mhm,
give you a way to nurture yourself, because when we think about the feminine, it's like mother's milk. And
mhm,
so many of us are deeply disconnected from our mother, deeply disconnected from, like, I just always think breast milk, like that, just like very visceral, like unconditional, powerful nourishment. And
mhm.
a lot of this is about reparenting ourselves. And then when you nurture you, then you can lovingly nudge and course correct. Um, and I've been doing this with myself because it's like every single thing I say and share, it's like it heals me too, and it's for me too. And thank God for breath work and astrology and like DNA activations. Like this is what helps us and holds us.
Yeah. 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 And to begin to question, to begin to question the judgments that you have
Mm,
about yourself and also about other people. I'll say that there's like a particular thing that I'm working with right now, which is like actually about the way that my brain functions because I have diagnosed ADHD and uh, I function in a really nonlinear way, which did not fit in the public school system. So I've actually had women come to me because I've been public about this in the past. I've mentioned it on podcasts, I've done stuff, and they're like, oh my God, Julia, like I just got diagnosed with ADHD and I don't know what I'm gonna do because like I feel like I'm broken. Am I ever gonna like have a normal life or a normal experience or anything like this? And I'm just like, oh my God, like you just have that fucking feminine magic. You have that feminine, creative, nonlinear magic. And still, there are places where today, like, it's like, God, I wish my brain just functioned a bit more like my partner's sometimes, where I could just like compartmentalize and, or if I have an emotional wave that's really big that needs to work its way through my body. And then, I might have a thought that's like, God, what's wrong with me? Like, do
uh,
I need to be on some kind of medication? You know what I mean? Like these thoughts, these judgments that we have, or even judgments about things like messiness.
mhm,
This too can be actually a rejection of the feminine. Like so just like noticing, like you were saying, observing how it's showing up for you in you. Because the purpose of this podcast and talking about the war on the goddess isn't to just fuel you up to be like, yeah, fuck all those people because they out there are 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 warring on me and fuck them, or to make you feel powerless. It's none of that.
mm,
It's to tap you into the truth that you already know in your body and to get you into deeper awareness and deeper relationship with how this expresses inside. how
Mhm.
you might be acting on this programming without noticing it, and also watching some of the judgments you have about other people.
Yeah, because there's so much here. Like our outer reality is a reflection of the inner reality.
Yeah,
And so
always.
it's birthed in us first. It's birthed in us first. And if we're applying judgment is just low key hate, by the way. And if we're hating and judging something in someone else, we're judging and hating that in us.
Hmm.
So for me, a lot of this came up with my journey with money. Like some of my most powerful mentors used to deeply offend me. And now my current me deeply offends previous me because it's like I would
Girl,
judge
same.
I would judge the fuck out of them. And no wonder I couldn't make progress because I was judging and hating the very thing I desired the most, you
Yeah.
know? And so it really what when there's a judgment, um, I believe that there's a secret desire underneath somewhere. Like think about a time when you judged like someone you thought was like quote unquote promiscuous, okay? Like
Mm.
what's the secret desire? Oh, the secret desire? I want to fucking show my boobs and have fun having sex. Okay.
The secret desire. I love that. And desire, by the way, I also see as feminine, whereas judgment is masculine. Um,
Because it's the body. It's like, oh, it's like that. It's almost like it's being kissed out of you. And then
mm,
a judgment's like a blade that's just, you know what it is? It's the flower versus the blade.
mm, yeah. I mean, personally, I think there's a time and a place for a blade, and I think
Oh, I'll
judgment
fucking
has
cut.
its place for sure. I think judgment has its place for sure, but I
Yeah.
think we are way over practiced in judgment without questioning.
Right. And here's how I think about the word judgment. Okay. My nana used to say, use your best judgment. And so if you look outside and it's snowing or raining, you're going to use your best judgment and bring a fucking coat, right? That's using your best judgment. But you're not going to berate the snow and be like, I hate you. You're horrible. I wish you didn't exist. Like, it's just like, it's going from a neutral gaze to making a story about it. Like we can have a judgment very neutral, like very, very data driven and very just like your intuition can be a judgment as well. That's another suppression of the feminine is like trusting your intuition and not needing to make sense in the mind.
Yeah, 1000%.
It's when we take ourselves on a trip. I like to call it a trip from hell. Thought loops from hell where you just
A
like
trip to hell.
trip to hell. I've been there a couple times.
Yeah.
When we're ruminating and perpetuating a story about it, which is really just the mind grasping for the illusion of certainty and control. And
Hmm.
so that's how I experience
Hmm.
judgment. Because like here's an example, like using my best judgment, like if why would I go to an ATM at night when I can go in the morning during the day?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that feels to me a really like appropriate application of
Mm-hmm.
judgment. Or just to judge something as like, hey, that doesn't seem to be in my highest interest, so I'm not gonna do it, right? Um, Or like even if you feel something is out of integrity, to be able to be like, that's out of integrity for me. Like these are ways that we do all practice judgment. It's unavoidable. It's just that it's one of those things where, like with many masculine attributes, the muscle is overflexed and it's overused and it's applied in distorted ways, and there's not enough of that relationship to the feminine energetic to balance that, to balance that out, or to make us all actually uh be existing in a state of harmony. And the thing is that I want to say here too is that it was not always this way.
Uh-uh.
Some people like to say that it's like since the beginning of time this has been the thing. No, actually, no.
These are the same people that rewrote the Bible, by the way.
Well, I mean, the Bible's only a couple thousand years old.
Yeah.
We've been around for a long, long time before that. Uh, and if you're looking at civilizations like Lemuria, like a long, 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 long time before that, right? And there was a time on the planet where the power of the goddess was revered and upheld by everyone.
Hmm.
That there was a time when that was the case, and
Yeah.
that shifted, and it wasn't like, oh, it just shifted naturally like over time and no one really did anything. No, there was like a concentrated, targeted effort to completely destroy the religious and cultural practices that elevated feminine power.
And this is where the Lemurian return and like a new earth, it's rooted in Mother Earth. A new earth is actually the ancient codes coming back. And
Yeah.
I keep coming back to this quote, this MLK quote: those who love peace must learn to organize just like those who love war. Like,
Mhm.
this is not an accident. They're strategic, they're intentional, they're not afraid to wield their power, they're not afraid to gather resources and advance their agenda at a rapid fucking clip.
Mhm.
And so we get to do the same thing with the feminine at the helm. And it's not about over masculizing, if that's a word,
Masculinizing, I think, might be
masculinizing.
a word.
Um, it is, though, it's having sacred structure as a devotion to the force.
Right.
Because right now, either it's people deeply rejecting this force or having tapped into it. However, it's spilling everywhere because it's not being held in a throne. And
100%.
so the gap the gap that we get to close in reclaiming this quantum femme power is trusting it, revering it so deeply. Like I go to the ocean every day and I float in the sea and I just cry.
Mm.
And that's how I keep tapping into the feminine force in a world that is designed to take me away from her.
Yeah.
And when we come together and we stay tapped into this force, and then we add, which by the way, it's not that much structure. It's way less than people think. They think they're going to be put in cages and
Mm.
It's just a pretty bow on top of the magic that's going to make the magic deliverable. We can't deliver the magic.
Well, you need a glass to hold the water. I mean, you do, otherwise you can't drink it, you know? And this is what I also work with people around with business. It's like the masculine holds the feminine. It supports the feminine. Or as my one of my teachers likes to say, it backs the feminine. The masculine's role is to back the feminine, not the other way around,
Mhm,
right? Which is a total reorientation for most people.
mhm.
Um, but I find there's so many women that I tend to be like a vibrational match to who come into my field that are like, well, I really want to do a business, but like I can't do it. Like I don't want to do like a schedule and like just like all the masculine elements, or they have this like extreme resistance to that because they perceive it to be like this one way that they've been taught, where like that becomes the thing that leads, and
Uh-huh.
then the feminine is like crunched in a ball over here, and that's not how we do it. And I know that's not how either you or I do it. Like the feminine actually leads, it flowers open and it like brings forth from the womb like this like creative surge of energy, this impulse, it's like we're going. And then
Mhm.
the masculine's job is to like hold that and deliver it in the way that it needs to be delivered,
Yeah.
right? That's how it kind of works. So this is just one context with business, but I love talking about it that way.
Yeah, and it's so common, and I believe that because both of first of all, I haven't met one successful women soul business owner that doesn't have a healthy masculine energy to her.
Yeah, me neither.
Like
It don't
it,
happen.
it don't
Even
happen.
if they're talking all about feminine, 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 feminine,
Oh yeah.
feminine business, flow, 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 flow. Guarantee you that woman has an integrated masculine if she's doing really well in business.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, it's without exception. And
Yeah,
so
no
what
exceptions.
I have noticed and what I believe our part of the power of our synergy is we both have our own ways of offering the structure for the force. Like
Yeah.
that's something big we bring to our clients. Because again, coming back to the program, like it's been coded in that like structure will oppress us.
Right.
We don't want to, and so when you come at it from that lens, we don't want to oppress ourselves.
But then we stay stuck.
But then we stay stuck, and again, we carry out the mission of the dark agenda.
Yeah.
I just hope it's landing for if you're listening to this, like if this is blowing your fucking mind, I'm really excited for you because your life is about to change. But you're starting to see all the subtle ways that we are literally boots on the ground creating the oppression for them.
Yeah.
And the same thing with money, which by the way, money is just power. We're in Scorpio season and the key word is power, okay?
Hmm.
No resources, no impact.
That's right.
Money is the root of whatever the fuck we decide, okay? And
Mhm.
this money is the root of all evil. Broke healer thing is another expression of the war on the goddess because it's like all these powerful women they have access to the codes, but oh my god, I push away money, and then what when you have no resources, you're limited.
Yeah, you're really limited and you end up doing things that you maybe wouldn't normally do, or you end up compromising on things that you wouldn't compromise on. Your power is actually diminished and you're not being nourished and resourced in the way that you need in order to transmit your codes in order to, be in your full power and potency and impact the planet. So yeah, that's another program that, that I really deeply feel passionately about too. The again, like everything connected to the feminine is like a thing that we've kind of vilified. Most people connect money to the masculine. I actually don't think money is either
No, me either.
feminine or masculine, but it is required for, it is something that people desire. Okay, desire feminine. It is something that require, like, that is required for our full nourishment, which is very feminine. It is something that gives us pleasure, which is very feminine, right? So these are all of these different ways. And I think like what I want to kind of circle back to too, Adrian, because I know we don't have well, actually we've got a little bit of time left,
Got a
but
chunk.
okay, we got a little chunk. But I did want to really circle back to this is like, you were talking about the online space and your mentors and how you kind of used to feel about them. I've had a really similar experience with most of the most powerful teachers in my life. But I wanted to say, you know, the greatest teachers in my life have been, and I've always been drawn to women like this. They've been women, and they've been women with a very integrated dark feminine, like a very integrated sort of Lilith
Mhm.
energy. And when I say that, I'm talking about, in the astrological sense, you're looking at Lilith as like, that dark feminine um energetic, but it's also like this really magical, it's like your potency, right?
Uh,
Uh, so very embodied women and women with a lot of sexual power, you know. What I have watched is these women whom I have loved. I'm gonna start crying talking about this.
oh.
These women who I have loved, who have loved me, who have changed my life, who have held my hand through the flames, who have been like this representative of what I could become, who have dedicated their lives to the work that they do, who have just meant so much to me, who have continued to point me back to my own power again and again and again, have been the target of very public hate campaigns, smear campaigns, have been canceled like massively. One of them to the point where it's like it was on almost a global scale, and like she's still in ongoing legal battles because of it, right? It's like I'm watching this happen and I've been blown away again and again. And once again, like you said, a lot of it is like it is other women. And it's so sad to me.
Mhm.
It's really, really sad because, and these are not women that I've like known from afar, that it's like I just see them on social media. No, like people who've been close to me in my life, that I've had close relationships with, that I've, spent solid time with in person, that I know their husbands, you know what I mean? Like, this is like real relationships where I can actually feel the truth of someone, and the paintbrush that's been used to characterize them
Yeah.
is really awful. And it might be true that all teachers deal with, like spiritual teachers or whatever, deal with some level of public demonization. I think that's just kind of like part of it. People in the public eye deal with this, but I think women who carry that kind of raw power deal with it in an entirely different way.
Yes. Yes, and when we come back to the name of this podcast, it's A Better World, and this is a leadership podcast. It's important to talk about this. It's happening before our very eyes. It's breaking our hearts.
Yeah.
And it's like, we know these people. Like this happened, I don't know if it's on the same scale, but like I was once on a live with one of my most powerful mentors, and all this hate started coming in the comments. And,
Hmm.
she even got a little shook. She's like, I'm just obeying spirit. I'm channeling this message.
Yeah.
And it just, the people that saw me, the women, not people, the women that saw me in my power and held me in my power when I couldn't see it in myself, I owe them everything. Like, not in a distorted way, but just like, you can't put a price on that. Like, it's you know what it is? It's love.
Yeah.
And when I started speaking without filter, because I filtered myself for a long time for this very reason, because my voice has been suppressed since I was a little girl. Because I remember being like, I think that person's gonna die. And then 2 weeks later, they die. And they're like, yo, shut up. And I made a vow to never pretend that the women I serve are not powerful.
Hmm.
I will never pretend you don't have the power to change your life. I will never pretend you don't have Lumeria, the mother, the dark feminine pulsing through your veins, just waiting to be tapped into and unlocked and just like flowing your full magic. Like, I'm never going to pretend that's not real. And because I'm unwilling to pretend, there are consequences, and we're seeing those consequences play out, with the people that have paved for us. And this is why this conversation matters, because it's real. And if we're going to rewrite history, we must rewrite this. We
Yeah.
must recode our nervous system. We must reroute back to our power, no matter the cost. You know, there's a Maya Angelou quote where she says, "The cost is high, the reward is great."
Mm.
But it will cost you. I'm not gonna lie. It'll cost you all the lies that you've been living. It'll cost you relationships that are built on a deck on cards that were never real in the first place. It'll cost you your ego. It'll cost you old ways of being. It'll cost you all the times you extracted your own life force to make money that felt good in the moment, but's not quantum money. It will cost you all of that. The reward is great because you cannot replace the love of the mother. You cannot replace the power of the feminine. And so as our hearts break, may they be cracked open to the true dark force of
Hmm.
power.
Hmm. Yeah. And I know for me, it's the only way. I can't not be committed to that even if I tried, because my soul intention for that in this life is so strong, to know that, to understand that, to embody that, to teach that, to transmit that is so strong.
Mhm.
But I will also say that watching, the climate that's out there, especially right now, I'll say, like online, um, and Aquarius is like the internet. You were talking about Pluto and Aquarius and stuff,
Yeah,
like
buckle up. Buckle up.
it's it's been intense. And the climate is really, really fucking intense online. And watching some of my teachers go through this, I'm also going to share too, like, I think I shared previously on the podcast that I did grow up inside of a cult, and had some pretty dark experiences there. But one of the things I've noticed is that people like to throw around the word cult leader for some of these women.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel like it's like the new equivalent of the word witch. And
Uh-huh.
then people like to jump on that bandwagon because it's a big, like, buzzword, taboo word kind of thing. Um, and for me, having come from that background and then seeing this,
Mm.
there's still places where I'm like, "Pfft, I don't fucking want to do that. Are you kidding?
Oh yeah.
I'm not going to put myself in that position that somebody's going to call me a cult leader. I'm not going to grow to that level where I'm going to be publicly demonized to that degree and be called that because I don't feel like I can handle that right now. Right. So I'm still moving through that and then being given lots of opportunities to kind of like move through the layers here and like be like,
Oh, me too.
like, let's go, like flexing the muscles of like, are you gonna be able to express that power at this level? Okay, are you gonna be able to hold that truth when this comes at you? Are you gonna be able to? And it's like, I'm still training and I'm still training and I'm still unraveling and I'm still
Mm.
unraveling and I'm still scared in places. And it's
Yeah.
okay. Like I have grace for my process with that. And I think that, whoever's listening that you should too. But what I also want to ask of you is that when you see a woman being targeted online, even if it's another woman calling her out, even when you see some of these documentaries and shit, like on Netflix or whatever, and you're like, oh, what a bad, evil woman. Question it.
Question everything. Question everything.
just just question it.
Hmm?
Do research on multiple sides and check in with your body and make sure it's not a program in your body or a fear in your body that you're being hooked into. Don't just jump on a bandwagon. And this is for any kind of like public calling out that you see. Never ever will you see me just jumping on a bandwagon saying this person is bullshit because someone does a public call out post or like says that they had a bad experience or like anything like that. I will not do that shit ever,
No. And
ever,
plus,
ever.
here's the thing. An embodied leader won't call you out. They'll call
Mhm.
you forward and they'll call you in. Because a call out is a gotcha moment. It's a I'm up here and you're down there. An
Yeah.
embodied leader will hold the standard and invite you to rise.
Yeah.
So this fucking call out shit is
Well, it's
not.
a substitute for power. And on an energetic level, what people are doing because they feel disconnected from their own power is they're putting themselves in a position of feeling power because they're actually feeding off of the energy of people sympathizing with them and saying, oh my God, you're right. She's so bad and evil and she's so fucked up. And then you're like, yeah, yeah. And then you're even feeding on the power of the person that you're vilifying in the first place.
Yeah, and guess what? It's all a distraction from your fucking dharma path.
Yeah.
Distraction from taking action towards your highest purpose.
Yeah.
Okay? Like
Yeah.
people on a path of purpose, they don't have time to throw fucking shade, cheap shade. They have their whole day planned. They're making
Yeah.
dreams. They're serving clients. They're doing ABCD. They're not fucking
I don't have
scrolling.
time for that shit.
Like, they
Being
don't.
like, this woman is mean. Okay. I mean, and I understand. Okay. I'm not talking about silencing yourself around your experience of something when you
Right.
really feel it's true and correct for you to share and it's a part of your healing path. I have done that for years and there was a long stretch of time where I very publicly shared about my own experiences. It was deeply healing for me, but the energy behind it was not I'm going to call these people out and also I'm going to warn everybody else how bad they are. And it has a different feeling flavor to it. Does this make sense, Adrian?
It makes so
What
much
I'm
sense.
saying?
And literally, my whole body, it feels so uncomfortable because I can feel the energy as we talk about it.
Yeah, it's very
Like, ew.
different.
I'm like, ew. Like, get it off, flick it off.
I
Like,
know. I know. I can't stand that shit. I cannot do it. I can't
well,
do
and
it.
you know what this is right now? This is our raw feminine power.
Yeah.
Look at us and our sovereignty and not mincing words. We're not floating, we're not saying go with the flow. No. If go with the flow doesn't mean, bend to whatever the masses are doing. Like, how about
Right.
you catch the cosmic wave?
Mm.
And so I really feel that we now get to share our cauldron that we've created together to support you, listener, you, goddess, you, divine feminine force, in staying tapped into this. And we have created, it's called the Femme Power Bundle. This is a blend, a very strategic blend of our modalities together. So breath work and DNA activations
Mhm.
coincided with live Q&A calls with us for you to stay to remember, reclaim, and stay tapped into this dark feminine power.
Yeah.
And we're so excited about it.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I got to tell you, some of the things I said here today, it's a bit of an edge for me. I got to say. Like this is really definitely not necessarily the safest and most comfortable place for me to be speaking from publicly. But you were saying like that element of responsibility that you felt in the room. Like I do feel that. And it's not a time to mince words, and it's not a time to um hide. It's too important now. And
It's too
so yeah, it's too important. And so if you're also feeling like there's stuff you want to say, or there's elements that you wish that you could express, but you feel these programs that we're talking about, you feel that fear, you feel that social fear. One of the things that's helped me the most is being connected to women like you, Adrian,
mm,
and being in circles and in portals,
mhm.
typically online actually, where that energy is supported and shared and expressed. Like, this is one of the reasons why homecoming has been such a powerful cauldron, and I love that word. But the femme power experience is going to be the same.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a bit of a different flavor. It's going to be a bit of a different flavor to help you unlock like these your unique codes around your feminine power. There's going to be elements in there around your relationship with money, your relationship with sexuality, your relationship with your body. There's going to be embodiment practices, but also there's going to be an experience of being able to sit with me and Adrian, and for us to be able to connect and share, because that's really important when you're just one person out there, just one, you know, feminine person out
Yeah,
there.
well, and I really want to touch on what you're saying about online. Like, for most of us, I would say, I mean, it's too many in my opinion, but most of us like this level of connection and holding the femme power is not readily available with in-person connection. Like
Mm,
much of the time, the people that we're around in our daily life, our daily in-person life, are scared to go here. And
yeah.
so we're going here. And we celebrate your power, and the breathwork master classes that I'm contributing to the bundle are are the soul Scorpio. It's power and alchemy. And the Libra leader.
Hmm.
They're both feminine. They're both power. They're different flavors. And through the breath, you're gonna code the safety into yourself, into your cells. And so, yeah, we're really, really excited. We're sharing this right around Samhain, which is like one of the most potent days for dark feminine magic. And so we invite you into this cosmic womb, this cauldron, this dark feminine portal of your power in a time where it matters. It's always mattered, but it's right here, right now, it matters. We're at a fork in the road. We're at a major fork in the road about, are we going to continue? Are we going to break the cycle?
Hmm. Yeah. And I think we can choose together to break the
Mhm.
cycle.
Yeah, I keep hearing my guides keep saying, my guides keep saying, don't go alone. Don't go alone.
Mm.
It's an old program. And
Hmm. Okay. I think we might be getting booted because I gotta go.
getting booted. Yes, this is what's available in the Femme Power bundle. And we just invite you. We can't wait to welcome all the goddesses into the space. And I just want to say a personal thank you to you, Julia, for continuing to be an example and teacher for me of staying tapped into my feminine power. Like, I would not walk the same without you.
Thank you. And likewise,
Mm.
100% likewise. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And to you, listener, go out there, be the change, be the light, make a stranger smile, feed your inner child, feed your inner femme, take action based on your intuition. I love you so much. And I will see you next time on A Better World with Adrienne.